You're listening to the Karmic Mirror podcast, where we explore the wisdom tucked within the layers of the self-help world.
Together, we bridge the gap between esoteric teachings and practical tools for everyday life, with self-love and personal growth at the heart of each conversation.
Whether you're a seasoned seeker or just beginning your path, join us and uncover the magic within and around you. Welcome back to another episode of Karmic Mirror podcast. Today's guest is Stephanie Pereira Lima. Stephanie is an intuitive healer and soulful leader who guides spiritual women to awaken their soul purpose, align with their feminine essence, and create soul-led lives. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello. Oh, it was so beautiful to hear you read that. And thank you for inviting me on. Thank you for, allowing me to share and open up. And yeah, I'm very grateful.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, we're so excited to. I feel like even though when I met you, we did not have a podcast, Allie and I had just become kind of like coaching core new friends. And so it feels like this conversation is a long time coming, a long time in the works. And so I feel all this excitement coursing through me to just like go at it. But we'll give you guys a little bit of backstory on how we met Stephanie. And it was like many things for me through Benshen course. I've talked about it on the podcast before. It is a monthly I think it's called a course, but I don't know if I would call it of a course, more of a community of women working towards their individual goals get together. And in Benjen, we're broken up into these smaller pods so that we can work on these monthly visions and have the accountability and kind of, I think, the vulnerability and intimacy that can come from just extracting from 300 women per month to maybe five. And I was so lucky that one month I happened to meet Stephanie in a pod. And it's so funny because before we jumped on the actual episode today, Stephanie and Allie and I were talking about voice notes and how our podcast started from voice notes. And Stephanie's like, I love a voice note. And that's my first memory of you because we were in a pod together. And then I think DM'd me offline in a voice note, and you were like,
Of course.
and I maybe I'm like totally, paraphrasing this, but I think you were like, I prefer to speak like voice notes. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about coaching and all of the things. And this was like maybe 2 years ago. And so all of that. And then, fast forward, Allie and I just super connected in coaching, and we started a podcast from our voice notes. And Allie, I'm skipping over 100 steps because man, Jen, manifesting generator. I'm like, let me just go there. But Allie ended up moving to New Jersey, and I was like, hey, I know someone who maybe I don't have no clue if you even live near each other. I don't even know what the proximity. I don't know New Jersey. And but I maybe you want to connect, and then voila.
Yeah, here we are. I remember it because, and if you go back, our first episode stuff was on community and building community. And so I was talking a lot about how I'm trying to build community back up in the Northeast. And one of those ways, was Michelle, like, I don't know if this is by you. Is this by you? And then for your nature walks that you all organized, Michelle had sent me one, and I was going to come to one. And then again, when I kind of backed out because just energetically, the day of, I wasn't feeling it, I sent you a voice note. And when you said, I love a voice note, I was like, this
It
is
always comes
awesome.
back.
Yeah, and then on that walk, which was just, I mean, it was so well timed and it was so beautiful, and the community who came together. I think one woman had driven an hour and a half to come and meet, and just how cool to get to interact. And I got a little bit of time with you, Steph. And usually Michelle and I will try to, before we ask people to be on our podcasts, double check with each other. But I just, in the moment, I was like, do you want to be on our podcast? Like when I had you, and you were like, yes, absolutely. So that's how we got here. And we'll talk a little bit more about Florida Vida, I'm sure, in this conversation and how we've interacted more with Steph. But before we get into really the meat of the topic today, we do like to let our listeners get to know you a little bit better because it's really crucial for expansion. Do you know your sun, moon, and rising if we're thinking about your natal chart? Talk to us about that.
Oh, yes. And I love that this is like the opening question. So my sun is in Pisces. I'm an Aries moon and a Scorpio rising.
I'm dead because I'm a Pisces sun, an Aries moon, but a Virgo rising.
Ah! It's so hilarious because I thought about it. I was like, our Pisces women, like we just find each other. We find each other. It's ridiculous. Like in all my women's circles, there's always like one or
Yeah.
two Pisces, and we just like, yeah. Um, what about you, Michelle?
I am a Leo sun. My moon is in Taurus and Aquarius rising.
Beautiful.
So much
Yeah.
of Ali and our charts are like so much opposite, and it's really fun to see how it plays out. But it's been lovely getting to know a Pisces woman and making friends. It is really lovely, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to mention that like and even my own placement like where my son is, it's in the fifth house and it is very much like with some like Leo flares. So when I was younger, I would get that a lot of like they thought I was immediately like a fire sign and not a Pisces. But as I've gotten older, I think like that's shifted for me. But I do want to name that the rest of my chart, I have a stellium in Capricorn. So a lot of earth and then a bunch of like Scorpio at the end. Yeah.
It's so interesting. We do an episode on sun, moon, and rising a little bit and talking about what those mean because natal charts are so in depth and we know we always take the sun sign, but my Virgo rising tends to shine really bright too. So sometimes I think people are surprised that I'm a
Yeah.
Pisces sun. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it and it flows, right? And it changes based on obviously the environments, the energies, like where you're at, but um we've got all those flavors playing
Mhm.
some kind of role, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Talk to us human design. I think like top three, we usually like to say energy type, profile. What else do we like to highlight? And
The authority.
Authority. Yes.
yeah, authority.
Yes, so I am a generator, emotional authority, and 4-6 profile type. The regal
Mm.
authority, which that name can sound so pretentious, but I'll go with it.
I love that. I
Yeah.
know sometimes when you read it, I think a lot of when we put names to some of these systems, you can see people have reactions to the names as opposed to just
Totally.
diving into what that really means,
Yeah.
right? Because we're
Yeah.
labeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in my chart, the 4-6, like, the four line, which is so much about network and community, like having had that information and that knowledge in human design helped affirm, right? Like why I've always been like the planner and the person who like hosts all the parties and gets all the people together and like introduces different friend groups. Like that's just part of my energy. That's part of, yeah. So the 4-6 um, piece in human design, like learning your profile type, I highly recommend. Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
resonate with the six?
So that for me, so that's the role model. Me being in my own energy and just sharing my story, that's that's how people connect with me. That's how they find me. That's because I'm a reflection of them and they are a reflection of me. And so in that role model type, like it's literally just me being in my authority. That's in alignment for me, right? And sometimes like with that fear of being seen, like sometimes it's like okay, my fullness, my boldness, like that's right. Those are the parts of us that we tend to hide because it can be a lot for people. And for those of us that are listening to this podcast, I know without a doubt, like all of us at some point were called too much in some shape or form, right? And so it's really, yeah, the unfolding of that and allowing that authentic true self shine and just be her, right? Be that soul essence.
Mhm.
Do you resonate with what I've heard about sixes is that they can more so feel that three energy until they get into a point of their life. So I have a three, so I'm a 3-5. And so do you resonate with that three line earlier in your life about the trial and error and living life,
Oh,
learning by
yeah.
living life?
Totally, completely. Everything's an experiment. Like the first 2 years of my business, like it was just trial and error.
Mm.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the regal authority, I have just been kind of like in the back of my mind for the last few, I don't know, however recent times, um, just exploring different ways of looking at the theme and the work of leadership, collectively or individually, what that looks like. And I've even, I think Allie, I was like going in a mini, like random rabbit hole that lasted for like, manifesting a day of gene keys and what leadership can look like. And I actually think that in context of this conversation and just you, what I know about you, the regal authority is like truly, I think, this next evolution of what leadership looks like, which is community based. It is living by example. It's like really, and I think to lead, and think about the sixth line. It's like this wisdom that you gather over the course of your life, and then get to that later or third evolution of the sixth line and have all of this lived wisdom. And I just think that's I think you really represent that so beautifully because since I've met you, even just your newsletter and in and out, seeing you pop up and your journey from, marketing to soul work. And I think you do exemplify that. I think it's so beautiful. And maybe I only had the aha, as you said, like regal authority, it can mean, and I was like, no, actually, she is a great example of what that means to lead by example, by community, and by like we versus, the true royal we of it all. So I just had to reflect that back what was on my mind because it really rings very true.
I received that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. See, it's like these little moments of like, oh, I'm so seen right now.
Mm. Love that.
Yeah. No, that feels really, really beautiful.
Walk us through the journey of how you got to this space now before we get into the beautiful work that you do for the world and the community. Talk us through how you got here from corporate America. What did that journey look like?
So I'll just briefly take us back to childhood, just to make sense of it all. So I grew up in Miami, and my father's Brazilian, my mom is Cuban. You know, we have that first generation, like, all right, we arrived, and now we're going to, do the American dream. And as you can imagine, living in Miami, growing up in like the very, it's just so much materialism and flashiness, right? Everyone has a Porsche and a Mercedes, and like this was normal. This was like the society that you grow up in, and so like money is like super just like in your face all the time. Like you need to make money, you need to save, you need to invest. Like so, I grew up with that, right? So my first job, I was like 14. I knew right away. I was like, I need my money. I need my car. I was like the first person to like get the license, and I was like driving everybody around in my little like Toyota Yaris. And it was stick shift and
So,
very
like
economical.
who's got quarters that we can fill up the gas tank because that would be
Exactly.
enough back
Exactly.
then.
Ah, the good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you can see, like I think by 16 I was like I need to leave Miami, I need to go to New York. That's where I'm going to expand and grow because it is a very different energy. And although growing up in Miami was so beautiful in so many ways of like being by the ocean and like really having, these like massive, like gigantic monsteras just like growing out of literally just someone's yard, you're like, oh, this is normal here, right? I became a plant fanatic when I moved up north. Basically, I was like very, very, very much in my masculine my whole life. I was called bossy at the age of 3, right? That was like a thing. And it really wasn't until after college I studied politics, I studied philosophy, but I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what are my strengths? Right. So I just intuitively started to like look at personality tests. And then that led me to, okay, I'm going to go into business development and management and leadership. And I know that I like people. And I had to do that because originally my heart, my 18-year-old heart was set on humanitarian work. But then, your economic crisis, and then you're like, okay, I need to pay my bills. So anyways, got into business development. I worked with a few different tech companies, and eventually I spent 7 years growing an event marketing agency. It was in the B2B space. So we worked with startups, mid-sized companies, all the way up to like the Adobes and the massive enterprises. And through that, got a lot of experience with event planning, with strategy, hiring and firing people and training and being the mother hen and like overextending myself in this company that was not mine, but it was a mom and pop, type of establishment. So I share all this because my burnout story, right? Like just like hitting that wall of like constantly living your life as if you are on a fucking treadmill. Like you are just on go all the time. Like I couldn't even sit down on a couch and breathe for 5 minutes. Like the breath work and the meditation stuff that I do today, like that was not me just a couple years ago. So there was a really important two things I want to touch on. When I was 24, I was awarded a scholarship, the Fulbright, to teach English in Brazil. And it was one of those like very synchronistic, like I had applied for it years before and somehow my application got submitted and basically universe was like, you need to go, you need to leave, right? And so I had that experience and that year was really the space and the time for me to actually explore my beliefs, my sense of purpose, why I'm here, what happens to us, like where do we go after we die? Like, is this it? Like all of those questions that you start to ask when you are awakening.
Mhm.
And earlier in life, like I had had more of a bit of Catholic influence, but at a very young age, I pulled back from it. I was like, I was like 7 years old debating reincarnation with my priest uncle. This was like legitimate. Like, I was like, no, this is not our first existence. Like, I just kind of, like I just knew I had this knowing.
I wish we would have been friends when I was little.
Oh,
I needed
yeah.
friends like that when I was little.
It also sounds very baby Pisces.
Yeah. I'm
Like,
like, how do they not understand this? Like, we are interdimensional cosmic beings. Like, of course, like that's where I've always kind of hung
Yeah.
out and just, yeah, like bringing it back into, living in Brazil and like having the space and time to actually study and tap in. Like spiritism is really what called me. And I have mediums in my family and I was finally able to like really connect with that because I grew up in the US, but I would travel and spend a lot of time there. But my whole family was always far away, right? I didn't have the, oh, grandma's up the street or uncle and aunts are nearby, like which adds a whole other flavor of like belonging and sense of home to, all of this. But, anyways, jump forward to, I think I was about 27. I was back in New York and it was just like, I broke, right? Like all this rage and anger and like just like unprocessed emotions started to come up to the surface in ways that I couldn't, I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. I was like, this is a lot. So that then led me to Reiki, breath work, women's circles, receiving Akashic record readings. I had a shamanic Reiki master and we did like past life regressions. Like this, like, so I just started to just focus my attention in myself, in personal development through this way. And, after time, like you just keep receiving this, but then also feeling it, healer, 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 you're a healer.
mhm, mhm,
And my like late 20s brain, being in that corporate America, like you're just like, how am I going to live being a healer? Like, how do I do this? What does this mean? How is it that I'm healing people? Who am I like we all go through these inner questions when we start to really follow our soul's calling because it's just it's an inner knowing, it's an awareness. It's just like in your cells that you're like, I can no longer live this way. This is my truth, and orienting your whole life to that path.
Mm.
That's what this is, right? When you start to really question what is my soul purpose? Who am I? What am I? Like what is my mission? Like why am I here at this time?
Michelle and I will talk. It's like you can't unsee it. And there's lots of different ways you can do
Hmm.
that. But when you go through those experiences or you learn or you know the programming at a very high level, but you can't unsee it. You can't unfeel that that's a way to be, right?
Right. And often what'll happen is you'll feel that nudge and there'll be fear around like, oh, I know I need to leave this relationship, or I know I need to leave this job, or I know I need to create some boundaries with my family. Like, but we don't do it because we're conditioned to behave and perform and you know, all these like obligations and things that you feel you need to do in order to be worthy and to be valuable to X, Y, and Z outside of you. And that's what this all just keeps showing us is that it's inward. It's
Hmm.
inward. It's within us. And so, yeah, I could go on and on. So I'll pause there and
Yeah, no, I think it really resonates with it's so cool and how aligned this is. I mean, selfishly for me, I've really been I've been learning about internal family systems, which is all about going inward. And this is just so well timed and it makes a lot of sense. And it feels very kismet to be having this conversation and be in this space with you right now. And so, really, at the core of it, Steph really creates a sacred space for her clients, for those around her in her women's circle. And there's really a depth in how you support your clients. I will plug your podcast and even just jumping on and listening to a couple. I think you do a beautiful job of highlighting what you do. And I loved that you had one of your, do you call them clients? What do you call the people who work with you?
oh,
Clients?
my client, my soul
Yeah.
client,
Yeah,
really.
your soul clients. One of your soul clients was on there, and it really helped me to understand more the work you do and how you can support. But can you talk us through who would be the ideal type of person that could benefit from the work you do?
Yes, thank you. So it's really the awakening soul, right? And I say that intentionally because I believe that we're always awakening. We're always on this unfolding, expanding, contracting, shedding, and rebirthing process. Like, you know, especially as women, women who are bleeding, right? We go through that on a monthly cycle, but then we look at astrology and there's 7 year cycles. And, you know, there's so much there in terms of this constant growing. And so really at the core it's those that are awakening to the divine feminine. They're awakening to presence, they're awakening to energy, they're feeling a lot more deeply. And it used to be, it's interesting to see the progression because at first when I first started off it was women that were in the corporate space and burnt out and desiring a sense of grounding, a sense of inner peace, a sense of just like I need to start creating some boundaries. Like that was like a really big conversation piece. And then it started to evolve into, oh, wait, they're actually going through their dark night of the soul. They're going through those like deep identity shifts, crises, like my whole life is burning down. What do I do? What does this all mean? Like, and then there's really that awakening piece. And then there's the alignment, right? This then you start to like actually take steps towards reading the book or listening to the podcast or taking the course or going to Kundalini, right? Like you start to just experiment and feel into like what feels good for you and what resonates and what kind of spiritual practice, right? Spiritual of all flavors. And then from there, there's an even deeper layer where they themselves are like, I'm a healer. I'm a light worker. I'm a space holder, right? Like I'm meant to facilitate and teach and guide in some shape or form. And then they step into that. And then they build a business. So it it's a full spectrum. But yeah, that's more or less the journey, right? The path that they're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love to see the full circle of this kind of like evolution because I think of soul work. I'm just using that as like a general term, but because like you said, it's like you're going from this sort of almost corporate type work and burnout only to go through these deeper layers of healing and growth and soul expansion or coming home, what have you, and then only to come back and create business because you know, for so many people, your skills are so necessary, right? It's like we say we're like these different layers of death and rebirth in this lifetime or of, you know, shedding, like you said, and I think oftentimes we're like, oh, I have to start over from nothing. But then you start to realize through your path how often everything that you've picked up is such a vital part of every step. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you discern, like when you're working with someone? I'm so curious because you said, you know, they're really going through this dark night of the soul. And what are some, I'm just, what are some of the things that like help you discern where, obviously getting, like you said, really going there and getting to know your clients deeply. But I guess what does that look like?
Is it like before we start working together?
Yeah, or how do you discern, are they, you know, kind of whether they're going through a dark night of the soul or they're just kind of like scratching the surface of what does this mean to
Mhm.
give myself a few minutes of tenderness and what does it mean to slow down and breathe? Like, what are some of the things that kind of you pick up on?
Yeah, yeah. So this is where I'm using my intuition, right? I'm using my body. Like I'm very I identify more as clairsentient, so quite literally feeling, and claircognizant. So it is a knowing. It is this just like right? It drops in and I'm like, this is what's going on. And so of course it reading their energy, right? And feeling into even just, and this is why I love being in physical in-person spaces because there's so much that is being communicated through the body, right? And we know that that is majority of the of how we it's nonverbal, right? How we communicate and sense and feel. But it's the language that they're using, it's the posture, it's are they looking me in the eye? Are they looking away? Like, right? Like and this is the thing is that I've always been able to sense and feel energy, but when you're younger and you don't know this and you don't realize like how much you're taking on and it can be overwhelming, right? And this is where all the other issues and imbalances come from. It's you start to find the language and vocabulary for yourself, right? To create more of like the boundaries and anyways, but just to bring it back to what you were sharing, it's in that conversation, right?
Mhm.
It's in me holding that space and listening to them and then feeling into and checking in too, right? And this is where like I use astrology and human design and gene keys actually when I'm starting off with a client. I look at all three.
I love that.
I take that in and from there I know how to speak to them, right? Because some people understand things on a more mental practical level. Others understand it more on a feeling level. Um yeah, and then it's really the containers, the space in which we're working in and we're communicating in and relating in, it's very flowy. It's very much channeled and just what they're needing as we move through that time and space together.
It's so beautiful. And I think in this, my longtime life coach is a spiritual life coach. And I, you know, she's very intuitive. And I've had some friends who have worked with her also. And when we're sharing our experiences, you know, there are times I'm like, well, she said this to me. And my friend was like, she would never say that to me, you know? And
Exactly.
that's when it clicked for me. Oh, this is a stronger gift. This is not just, you know, you're in corporate America learning how to coach somebody. There's intuitiveness to this. The fact that you can take gene keys, astrology, and human design, three very complex system stuff, and what feels like in flow and with ease, be able to draw the things out that are really going to help your soul clients, really shows me that this is a gift and this is, you know, a purpose for you and why you're here in this space.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes to all of that. Yeah, exactly. And those are the three that I really went deep into, right? And then you kind of and I feel like everybody finds their different systems, whether it's Enneagram or, you know, gene keys, that's also like very much starting to become in more people's of awareness. And it's the intuition piece, right? This is where when I look back on those previous roles that you had shared before, Michelle, of like being in corporate, like that was my intuition guiding me the whole time and how to deal with people and how to connect with them and how to understand where they were coming from, right? And I say this to everybody. I feel like the number one skill set that honestly, if you were going to invest time in studying, is emotional intelligence. Like really, right? For
Yeah.
yourself, for your loved ones, because that's really what's here. That's really what's at play. And a lot of people avoid going there. They avoid the emotions, they numb, they distract, they find all the excuses under the sun until, again, your soul is like poking and nudging. And then eventually there's like that catalyst, right? Like there's something huge that happens, whether it's a breakup, a divorce, a death, a loss of friendship. Like there's these big things that quite literally cause us to open up. And that's where the work starts.
I'm giggling. I'm like, or all of the above in my case. Sometimes not just one. So
Right.
then people come to sessions with you. Highlight, you've got a lot of tools in your arsenal to be able to support not only your clients, but the collective. Highlight those for us, please.
Oh, thank you. You know, that as I was going through my own soul purpose path and like really questioning and trying to understand like my soul archetype, right? Because there are those if we bring a little bit of like the human design language, like the energetic architecture of our soul, being a space holder has been just it's me through and through. And you know, before getting into this world, like I was quite literally the therapist or the rock for a lot of people in my life. And when you realize like that's a gift and you can share it, but you can share it with intention, and you can also have boundaries of knowing like, you know, does this deplete me or does this give me energy? So the space holding is really, I think, like the foundation of it. But what's beautiful about this work is that as I lean in more and I trust more in my psychic gifts, more comes online, more opens up, and then more information, right? It's not just a word, it might be a sentence that drops in that I can then share with my clients. And it's really amazing because I do work online, but I also do work in person. And for me, like I need the hybrid, I need the physical touch and literally like to give a hug to my client, right? Like
Mhm.
it's just I have to do that. Like that's where I'm also healing my hands, right? That's why Reiki called me immediately when I was in my mid 20s. Um and then again coming back to like the previous roles, and I just want to drop this in middle school, I was in broadcasting. So I was making movies and on microphones. And I laugh because I'm like, oh, how cute. Now I'm doing my podcast. And these are literally the skills that in middle school that I was using that are now serving me. And even in those spaces of like learning how to manage people and connect with them and understand what are their desires. How can we, create roles and keep promoting them or moving them? Or, like I was always very invested in the growth of my team members. I've always been the mother hen. Like that's just me. And so when you realize like I can just be me. I can just be me and connect with the women that connect with me, right? The ones that because that's another piece to this is that when you are really embodying your light, it's either going to attract people or it's going to repel them. And that is part of the process. And I share that with those that are, identify as people pleasers and very much like, oh, not wanting to hurt or harm or cause discomfort for others, because that was very much my experience. But you got to be you. You can't keep hiding or holding back or, and really eventually, like what may have triggered someone that is going to be the thing that's going to cause them to kind of look at that aspect within them, right? So I just share that because that's also like talk about the wisdom, like things that I've been learning. Yeah, I think it's just bringing all of that in. And then, like I said, they're just reading the energy, feeling into where they are in their journey. Because again, I have like women that are full on like star seeds, channeling, witches, all the way to, hey, I don't want to be in my masculine anymore. And I just want to create alignment. I want to have a relationship with my womb. I want to have a relationship with my heart. I want to know how to process my feelings, right? It's all there. They are all pieces of me too.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like there isn't much that builds trust and confidence than being able to reflect on the gold, like that true golden thread. Like, yes, we always think of golden thread as like there's the connection between all of us. And yes, there is, but between your experiences, even the ones that we are, whether they're, extremely painful or they're deeply healing or they're, all of the spectrum of emotions and experiences, when you can start to see how they're all so connected and they really serve you and in your path, even if you can't see it, that to me is like, those are the moments of reflection where I'm like, okay, now I feel what it means to trust myself. Know it, because look at what I've done so far, even when I couldn't see the way through. And I think it's really beautiful. And I was just looking at you, Allie, because I think there's so many things that are just lighting up as you talk. One, just that have been so recent in at least Allie and my conversations, things that, and I won't speak for you or anything, but it's always lovely to see the many ways those threads weave, because whether it's we have you here in this
Yeah.
conversation and you get to just through sharing your experience, also shine a light and do exactly what you do, right? Hold space for some of the things that have been coming up in, like I said, between Allie and I, not between us.
Well, you
But
could
I'll
just
let
say it.
you.
Stuff I'm going through.
I'm like, I don't
This
want to speak for you and tell, like, it's not,
this
but
is now our second guest episode stuff where the person is talking and I can just see Michelle grinning because I know that this is really it almost sometimes again I've said this on a couple of episodes. I get so much out of this podcast that, and I know people will find it who are meant to find it, but even if nobody found it, it's just so enlightening for me. And sometimes it does feel a little selfish because the messages, like Michelle's laughing, feel like right on time and right where I'm at in my journey. So maybe you and I'll grab some coffee soon and we can get into the nitty-gritty details of that. But I
yeah.
would love for you to talk a little bit about the masculine and feminine. I think a lot of times in society, we really, right, it's like men, women. And the first time I had an acupuncture session and she was doing some energy clearing and she was talking about the masculine and feminine. And that really started to allow me to look at it a little bit differently. Can you highlight a little bit more about that and how it's incorporated into your work?
Yes, absolutely. This is foundational to everything for me because really the why of my work is anchoring in the divine feminine frequency. And so this divine feminine, the divine masculine, right? When we're speaking to the qualities, the energetic qualities of these expressions. So not man or woman, because every human has both flowing within and throughout them. But culturally, societally, right, being that we have been, and we're coming out of that patriarchy, we have been conditioned to repress the feminine and be solely in the masculine. And so when we wake up and we're like, wait, I can actually breathe and chill and slow down when I'm on my cycle or when I'm bleeding in the moments that I feel low energy, and trust that when you are resting, you are also productive, right? This productivity word, I removed it from my vocabulary as soon as I left corporate, but it's we're taught that production and efficiency and goal setting is like the constant and the thing, and we need both. We need both, right? Because when, for example, when I left corporate, Those first 6 months were just me healing. It was like a pendulum swing from like one end all the way to the other, where like for the first time ever, I had nothing on my calendar. I had all this space. I had no one to talk to, no one to report to, no one to ask me anything. And I literally had to just be by myself. And that I fell into a dark depression, but I had to be in that depression. I had to be in that space to then find and rebuild my inner masculine and feminine. So just to bring it to more tangible terms, the masculine is the practical, logical, strategic way of doing things. It is also the container. It is also the holder of space, right? So the feminine is the flowy. It's intuition. It's the subconscious. It's the dark, deep essence of really creation. And so when we are in our feelings and we're crying and we're releasing and purging and processing those emotions, and then we clear that out, and then we can kind of come back into like feeling inspired and in our flow, right? Like that's all normal. That's all necessary. And for those of us that repress, 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 at some point it all is going to come up to the surface. And so part of this way of living, right? I speak about creating a soul-led life, your soul being that aspect of you of that's infinite, that's timeless, that is beyond earth and multidimensional. They are having these experiences on earth to learn, right? We come here to experience contrast, to learn from certain lessons, to grow from them, and to create a new reality, to create that more connective right, this is all feminine 5D. If you want to get into like dimensional stuff like 5D energetics, it means you're living from your heart, and it's not this like faraway place that we have to move to. It's a state that we need to cultivate within. And so then we bring in the words of abundance and joy, and we bring in pleasure, right? Like really when you start to deepen into this, like your womb space, like connecting with your sexuality, your sensuality, like that kundalini energy. That's that creation, that shakti energy. That's the divine,
Mhm.
right? And so we're taught that God, or, and I apologize if that triggers anybody. That word used to trigger me, years ago, but God, divine, universe, source, creator, whatever the word is, whatever that higher intelligence is for you, it's not outside of you. It is you. It is you. It is within you. And so that's really what we're all, right? Like from a spiritual perspective, like whether you go down the yoga route, you go down the Reiki route, like whatever path, like they're all beautiful and they're all serving you. And so just trust that where you are is where you need to be. And when you're ready, you start to develop a relationship with spirit and co-create in the sense of, okay, you start to bring in more presence and prayer and blessings, and you start to connect with your food before you eat it, and then you might move your body and start to bring in more like hip circles, and like feeling into like, what does my nervous system need, what does my body need, what do I need, and tending to that. I'll pause there. I went on so many, yeah, tangents. I don't even know where
Oh,
to.
it's so beautiful, and I got chills several times. I mean, I think I'm starting to connect with my intuition, and I think it comes by way of chills.
Yeah.
And there were
Yes, it
many
does.
times when you were talking, the chills were coming up, and is it safe to say that when you're specifically with your one-on-one clients, your soul clients, this is the work you're doing is to help them connect with that? And I know it's very personal and unique for each individual, but that is the path that you're helping them touch and reach and explore.
Yes, yes. I am guiding them to deepen into their self and claim their power, claim their feminine essence, claim their voice, right? So again, it's different in terms of what each person is really at the root, like what they're working. But I will say that the theme through and through and through is self-trust. It is self-trust. It comes down to it. And soon I'm going to be releasing a few more episodes with clients where we talk about their story and where they were before and during and after. And every single one of them, it's self-trust. And it's beautiful for me as a practitioner, as a facilitator to see that, because it makes it easier for me to describe, right? Because again, I'm like, I'm seeing it, I'm seeing all these transformations, I'm
Yeah.
seeing how, like how beautiful the ways in which they're really building a foundation to stand on, and then
Yeah.
from there being able to shape their reality. And part of this too, it's so wild. As I deepen into my womb work at Flor da Vida, which is a local space here in Verona, New Jersey, a beautiful space. It's where I've called home for the last year and a half, and so many women are getting pregnant around me. So anyone
Mm.
who wants to do conscious conception work, please, yeah, come to me, because it's just the women are coming, and look at how beautiful, because I'll be 35 in February, at the end of February, and I am also stepping into that phase myself now, right? Of like, what does it look like for me to choose to start to tend to my emotions, my body, and like do the blood work, do the functional medicine, like figure out like where are all the, the levels, and your blood and your cholesterol, and like all the things, right? Like really starting to deepen into the nutrition aspect and eating more whole foods and cutting out whatever the things that you need to cut out, to then start to connect also energetically with the spirit of your baby and call that in. So that's a whole process too.
I love that. Maybe I'm your next client. Because I'm right there with you. I think there's also, and I won't go on like a whole tangent, but I do think that there's a lot, it takes a lot of courage to be a one to just be a woman who is exploring, conscious conception, or just, starting a family in that way. I do have a family. It's my two dogs and my husband, and I feel very complete in this way. And also, this is, but I think it takes a lot of, at least for me, it feels like a lot of self-trust and a lot of courage to look at the very tangible aspects, like you said, of the blood work, of hormone testing, all of those things, because there can be a lot of sense, and I'm totally speaking from for myself, of like fear, because it's just so deeply ingrained of like, well, I don't want to see or or receive something that I wasn't expecting, right? Like, in terms of just all of the things, and I'll just say this, I don't know why, but I have told this to Ali a million times. I always weirdly felt like I was going to be an older mother, and I mean older in the sense that like I was going to be 20, but older in my like late 30s and 40s. And so whether or not that's the case, it always has felt really rooted in something that feels like, okay, I don't have to be too worried, because I feel comfortable with that, for whatever reason, right? Intuitively, all the things.
I think what I would love to highlight about the work you do, Steph, is yes, if you're trying to conceive, but also, and I'm so happy I was lit up when you said you'll have more of your soul clients on your episodes, because the one that I listened to, it's even the things, and I'm getting chills right now. So definitely meant to share this with our community, where she was talking about, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's not verbatim, but that she doesn't excel in fast pace, and she really likes to take her time, and that's where she feels like she can hear herself best. And
Mm.
whoever the boss or the people looking down on her with the judgment, and she has gotten to a place where, and keep me honest here, Steph, that as long as she is going internal and she's taking her time, because that's the trust that she's built within herself by working with you, she has eliminated a lot of this other noise, because she's at a place where I'm certain this is the best I can give. And that is just another example of, I think, the work that you do. I know there's a lot, but it'd be remiss if I didn't highlight some of those stories. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this is why I love the podcast space. I love the storytelling, because precisely, right? It's in me inviting her to share her story. You heard it, and now there's something there that resonated and lands with you. And there's gems in all of us, right? And this is why we want to use our throats and our voices and share. And yes, to what you're describing, it's for her, it also was creating the bound, right? This is where the boundaries come in again, creating those boundaries for self, understanding like what your capacity is, like what is your limit, and honoring that and just speaking your truth. and being in your truth, right? That's really what, when we say integrity, it's like you're just in your wholeness and being okay with if someone's upset or someone doesn't like it, or, maybe there might be a little bit of internal guilt that comes up. Like, right, everyone has different kind of that inner dialogue. Others can just be like super cutthroat and be like, no, fuck it, bye. And then others like really suffer to like put boundaries. And the courage piece that you were speaking to earlier, Michelle, like that's something that has also been very much like reflected in readings that I receive from the channels and psychics that I like to go to, every couple of months. And the courage codes and abundance codes, like those are, and boldness, like those are like the words that kept coming through that I know that my energy activates in other women. And like that's the piece, right? That, and yes, it can look like, okay, I'm ready to call in my baby, but it can also be, hey, like I just want to create a deeper sense of connection with my partner, and I want to be able to have more vulnerable conversations, to I don't want to be codependent, to I want to learn how to actually take care of my body, like really truly deepen into my body, right? Others, it's I'm a healer and I want to be serving my clients and I want to expand. And how do I do that? And even the abundance piece, right? Like the money wounds, like that's a topic that I get into a lot with clients. So it really, like I said, it really just depends on where they are and what's most present that will support their highest timeline. And then we get into it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, there's so much also, outside of conscious conception. I think with what you're doing, womb work in general, and one, I think um, it's a concept that's probably been around since the beginning of time and the beginning of creation, right? And also, it's relatively unknown by so many people because just thinking about your cycle for, like you said, women who are menstruating, there's a layer. One, talk about self trust and knowing your body intimately is it's very empowering. It's also, yeah, there's so much power and within that relationship. So I'm just curious to know a little bit more about, yeah, just your womb work experiences, how wherever you want to take it. It's all welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to just really take it back to when I was back in my corporate life and being in, the imbalanced way of living for so many years and overextending myself and not really nourishing my body. Like that, the two main areas within my system that got affected is my digestive system. And I was diagnosed with celiacs when I was, I think, 23. So that's right. Even I'm going to bring it up, like when you're pooping, right? Like your bowel movements and your large intestine, like that needs to be in good shape for your health too, right? For your body so that you can eliminate things. And the other piece was the reproductive, right? So my cycles, my normal window between bleeding would be like 60 days. It was wild. And when I finally started to look at these pieces and deepen into, so again, I was doing the energy work, but I also was seeing a naturopath and I was, taking herbs and really deepening into like, how can I, like right now I'm drinking mugwort tea. Like I will say that for anybody who has, issues with their reproductive menstrual cycle, they want and some herbs, like working with mugwort, working with cinnamon, yarrow, calendula, right? Like there are all these beautiful natural plants and herbs that you can take to support that area. So for me, it was really like, how do I keep naturally? Because I was on birth control for maybe less than a year, and thank God that I knew in my body, I was like, I can't take this. This does not feel good to me. And again, not shaming anybody who is on birth control. That's your choice. But for me, it was not my thing. So I had to figure out, how do I regulate my cycle naturally? And I did seed cycling and I did so many things under the sun, but it was really the combination of lifestyle change, embracing my feminine energy, creating a more natural, holistic lifestyle, right? Like all of the things, the emotional components, like you get rid of the toxic relationships, you get rid of the relationships that don't serve you. And that's also its own deep grieving process to let that go and create that space. But I started to connect with my womb. I started to place my hands over my womb, and you can even give yourself a womb massage or a breast massage, right? Like touch yourself, like grab a mirror, look at your yoni, like connect with her. It is an aspect of us, and we are taught that it's dirty, that it's shameful, and particularly for those of us that have had some form of sexual trauma, right? It's a very tender area and space to go to, but the disconnection, like that's the disassociation, like that's the piece that we always want to keep connecting and seeing and looking at so that we can create that wholeness. And then everything else in our life can flow, right? Even to, I want to grow and make more money, or I want to call in a romantic partner, or I want to call in my baby, right? Like all of this is the force, it's really coming from the sacral. So
Yeah.
in my deepening in all of this, naturally, just at the womb spa at Flor da Vida, I started to host once a month, and I still do this in person womb circles. And so this is a space where we drop in and we connect with our breath, we meditate, we'll, introduce ourselves and really just my first prompt is always what's present for you? Like what are you feeling in this moment? Like what energy are you arriving with, right? So we all kind of drop in, and then from there it varies. Sometimes I bring in breath work, we do journaling. Sometimes we're doing some dance and movement. It just depends on the energy. It depends on what everyone's needing. Sometimes they're really tired and we need to just like lay in shavasana and recharge. And others times we have to talk and cry and laugh. And so the space holding, right? These are intimate places where women can drop into their own feminine essence.
Mhm.
And it's beautiful to see what they walk away with. They're like, oh, and I don't even know what it is that I'm saying, right? Like in a way that is me channeling when I'm kind of in flow, and or it is I not kind of when I am in flow, that is me channeling. And the words that come through, I don't know what's going to land for who, but I trust that whatever I'm saying is going to resonate on some level for the ones that are paying attention and want to be in space with me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then deepening into my offerings there, then it felt right to have a one-on-one space where you're on a table and my hands, right? We're working with Reiki, we're working with womb massage, gentle touch. There's also yoni steam component. So using the herbs and the steam to really, breathe and connect with your womb space, and some light breath work. Yeah, and then you just create, and it's beautiful because those sessions are often either like a deep clearing and an activation, right? There is
Mhm.
something that okay, from here forward, this is what I'm stepping into, or this is what I'm calling in, and it's really beautiful to see all that unfolds from those sessions.
So much goodness in all of that. First of all, I love mugwort and I bathe in it sometimes. And it is like one of the best yoni steam herbs. It's been, I actually came across it from a brand from Korea who wants, these two women are looking at how do we speak about menstrual cycles differently. And we know that we hear about it more here in the States more and more, and it's more of a common conversation, or it's becoming more. And also you go to other countries like in Korea, it's a little bit more uh jarring, I think, for people to hear a woman in Korea talking about her cycle in such a free way and really like passionate and educating people. So, anyways, they do these great, mugwort pouches. And so, yes, I second that herb and all of the just educating yourself on your cycle and on your body. And I find within that learning, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking powerful. I was literally put into this body to be this incredible, like there's so much happening every month. I contain literal multitudes within me, every second. It's so beautiful. So, okay, just to make sure we touch on all of the things because there's so much, and I feel like one myself, anyone listening is gonna like now go and look at all the different things that you do. We talked about the divine masculine and feminine, which also like talk about 60 days in between cycles, right? It's like that is such an aspect. And you see that connection there between connecting with your feminine and just seeing all of what has come into such beautiful harmony as a result of that. But we've talked about a little bit of Reiki, which that's what I remember you starting, I think, right? You had come and studied upstate New York. Just so many, and you also put me on to people like Maha Rose. I think she's your mentor in Reiki and breathwork. If I'm not, I might be saying
Breathwork
that
was a
wrong.
different space, but yes, yeah, Maharos was a beautiful community that really supported me in the beginning of all of this back in Brooklyn before the pandemic. And now it's still
So
around. It's in a
beautiful.
different studio, but for me, that was the version of Maharos that I really the time in which I connected there.
I
Uh,
love that. We
yeah.
talked about the women's circles, which you're still doing at Florida Vita in Verona, which is awesome. And maybe one of these days I'll get a chance to come visit Allie and you. And I think,
Michelle got many voice notes after the open house that
yeah,
you had there because I just said, Michelle, I mean, first of all, I didn't know what a yoni, is it yoni steam?
Yes.
Yeah. I never knew about that and just was able to learn so much about what the practitioners do and what Flor de Vida is all about. And I just was so lit up. And I said, Michelle, next time you are coming down, I let her know too late, but next time she'll
yeah.
come. So,
A
Yeah.
couple other things. You touched on codes and frequencies, right? You were talking about that. And the other thing I want to make sure we touch on before we kind of go into some just talk specifically about your offerings and close out. But I do want to know Soul Blueprint and if there's anything else on the topic of codes and frequencies that maybe is important to share or that you feel like would enlighten us too.
Mm. Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing us there. What I'd like to share around one soul blueprint is one that it exists, right? Because I know at some point in my path, I really wasn't tapped into this, but with the understanding that our soul has had many, many lifetimes, many, many other experiences, lessons learned, there have also been beautiful gifts and skills from those times that we bring with us. And so this is really connecting to that inner artist, right? And we think of like when you're a kid, what were the things that you loved to do? Was it writing? Was it teaching? Was it creating something? Was it dance and movement, right? Like these natural talents. And so when we connect with understanding that our blueprints, right, literally on a DNA level, we have our human DNA and we have a cosmic DNA. And so when we start to orient our life to living in alignment with our soul, trusting our soul, embodying our soul, right? And this is really just bringing it out in every which way in your life. More of this cosmic DNA comes on, right? It turns on. And this is what when we say to embody your light body, your light frequency, that's what we're doing. When we speak about density and karma, right? We're talking about those like dark, deeper and denser. I don't want to say dark because that implies like evil, and I don't. That's not where we're going with this. It's just it's heavy. It's heavy, right? The rage, the apathy, the grief, the sadness. Like we need to feel that, transmute it, right? So alchemize it, clear it from our system, and that way we can keep bringing in more of that light. And so the soul blueprint, right? This is where those archetypes I was speaking to earlier. So some people are natural teachers, some people are natural guides, others are artists, others are space holders, right? And then when we get into more of the psychic gifts, like you have those that are channeling and channeling what and who, and like that gets into a whole other dimension. But It's really this understanding, this word light worker. It's really understanding that one of our soul purposes, one of our missions is to just be in our light and to be in our joy and our happiness. And just when you're leaving the grocery store and you say thank you to the cashier and you smile, like you don't know how that smile and that eye contact is going to change their life. And it's something as simple as that, like it's not to say that everybody has to be an energy healer to be in their soul purpose, not at all. But there are the healers, right? So that's another soul archetype. There are those like, this is me. This is the work I'm meant to be doing. And I'm a nurturer, I'm a caretaker, and I want to step more into this. That's how those blueprints come to play. And really all of this becomes inner knowledge, inner knowing as you do the inner work, right? Because yes, you can get a reading from even a medium or a psychic. They can give you information, but that's still mental. This is why we say, like, this work, there's a descending, right? There's a going within, there is an embodiment where literally in you, and this is why breath work, which I love, 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 and highly recommend to everyone, it's a really quick transmuter and clearer, and it helps you to like really move through some of the funkiness a lot more smoothly. And it also allows you to tap into that portal, that channel, so that you can be in your creativity and your inspiration. And it's really in those moments, that's really what it means to be in your soul purpose, right? To really be in that like energy of creation, of the divine, of inspiration and flow. And it's really beautiful, because the more and more people that wake up and see this way of life and choose to not continue suffering and choose to face the fears and make the changes and embrace the new way of living. Like, yes, there's a lot that's going to die out and be cleared, but you're making space for the more aligned relationships and opportunities and travel and love, right? Like all the things that everybody wants. Well, it's really, yeah, it's really the codes, as I mentioned earlier, like for me, the courage, the abundance, the boldness, like that's something that I know, right? And other people's energy, it might be more nurturing and more grounding, and that's what they activate in other people, right? And so the piece that I really want to highlight is just really understanding, similar to like our fingerprints, right? Like our souls have such unique coding, and it is literally like you are you, and no one else on this, out of billions of people, like no one else carries the gifts and the talents and even like the way you speak and the words that you use, right? Like you speaking in the way that you do will attract the people that are meant to listen to you and connect with you and talk with you. And so I just share that because I know often like people want to like edit themselves or filter or change, morph to be a little bit more of this or that. And it's like, no, 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 just be you. Just be you. And that's what we want. We want more of that.
Beautiful. Yeah. So beautiful. Well, let's get into some of your offerings. I know you have a retreat coming up. Is that full? Is that something we can still highlight or?
Yes. So we just sold that out. It's happening in a couple of weeks. I imagine by the time this airs, it probably will be in the past. But that is happening in Costa Rica. I'm co-hosting with Amy Natalie, and I'm very excited. That's a feminine embodiment retreat. But I do want to share that I'm in the process of organizing a retreat in Guatemala for the summer solstice, so in June, and that'll be with Shanti, who you met, Ali, at Flor da Vida, and another facilitator named Melissa. She's based in Bali, so the three of us are working on this right now. So very soon we'll be announcing that. Um, I'll share. So I like to always kind of give like three buckets, right? So in terms of community, in person at Flor da Vida, the monthly women's circles is definitely for those that are local to New Jersey. we're also going to be bringing back our free goddess nature walk in March. And I also want to mention there's mugwort, tons of mugwort growing in this reservation, and we are planning to do a
Amazing.
foraging
Yes, I'm
walk.
so excited
Beautiful.
about it. And I just have to plug for anyone who feels like a peak of interest in this. And if you're local to the New Jersey area, just show up for the walk. Just go to the womb circle. I promise you, you will feel so held. You will feel so seen. You will feel like you are part of the community as soon as you show up. So I do want to highlight that. I know sometimes it can be a little, I mean, I brought a friend. There was someone else there who brought a friend. Can
Yeah.
be a little intimidating, but if you don't have a friend, you will very shortly have a friend once you show
Yeah.
up in that space. So
Yeah.
I just want to plug that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and that is the intention with that space. It is to make a friend, and it is to just be with other women in a more chill, relaxed. Like we literally walk to the waterfall, and women bring their oracle decks and journals, and whoever wants to go on a walk goes on a walk, whoever wants to chill just hangs out, and we're just all in conversation. It's really beautiful. So that that's what I'd like to highlight, like community wise. But even at Flor da Vida, on almost seasonal but monthly basis, we're offering some type of. We did a goddess rebirth ceremony. We did a priestess ceremony. We had a winter solstice summer ceremony, excuse me. So I would just invite, people to take a look at my website. That's where I keep all of my upcoming offerings listed. And then for those that desire to have a deeper one-on-one, VIP experience, my offering is called Soul Space, and this is where we take either 3 months, 6 months. Oftentimes my clients, extend that depending on what they're flowing and going through, but 3 months or 6 months to start, right? There's a beginning, middle, and end. We have this space, and we meet over Zoom 3 times a month. There's 1 week off for integration. And in between that, we're on Telegram with voice notes and resource sharing and just checking in, right? It's from how you're feeling to holy shit, this money just dropped in and I'm having this realization and I'm making this change, right? Like so I'm there. I'm in it with my clients. The other piece I want to highlight is my private group program called Journey Deep Within. I just ran it in the fall. It's a 3 month offering, and I'm planning to bring it back now in the spring of 2025. And that's an online container, similar format, 3 times a month with 1 week off for integration. And we flow through each of the chakras, and we are literally doing breath work. I'm doing energy healing. We are Man, those are the recordings that I have that I can't wait to share because each person, and this is very much an opener and a catalyst for your soul purpose expression. And the final thing that I'd like to share is Held Healers, and that is an online community for intuitives with a spiritual business. So this is something that I'm literally developing right now, and I also imagine by the time this airs that it'll be live. This is a space that I'm creating for the emerging intuitive that is still in that, like, I'm figuring out how do I talk about my gifts? Who am I working with? How do I create that offering to, really just receiving that support and because I know that in the beginning phase, like you don't have money, you don't want to spend money, it's really hard, but you need support. Like that's what this space is. It's literally the support, both healing and business support that I needed, that I did not have in this way and at an economical price. So I just want to plug that, and I'll share the landing page with you guys. And that's another, online space where I want to bring more women together. I want to expand. My one-on-ones are incredible and we go very deep. And I also desire to expand this year, right? And like really connect with and support and reach more and more women. And that's the beauty of the online space. Um, so yeah, thank you for allowing me to share all that. Yeah, in detail.
Beautiful. And I love all of those offerings. I mean, it just, I was getting chills while you were talking about what you're giving, and we'll make sure to tag all of those things in our show
Yeah.
notes for anyone who's interested.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have some other questions
Yeah.
to just kind of know you a little bit more. So, what is a quote or mantra that resonates deeply with you?
Mm. I am ready.
Mm,
I am ready. This is something that came through for me very recently now, in the winter time, and to declare that, to declare it right to my higher self, to my guides, I am ready to allow all the abundance to flow in. So,
yes. Amazing. All right. Tell us a book or, yeah, a book that's had a very significant impact on your life.
so I'd actually like to name Eckhart Tolle all of his books.
Everything. Yes.
Not just the
Yeah.
one,
Just
Yeah.
all
the
of them.
collection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What is it? New Earth and The Power of Now. Like all of his work, Eckhart Tolle. And even if you're not someone who has the space or capacity to physically grab a book and read it, like pop it on a podcast. He has a lot of stuff with Oprah online, and just listening to his content, it just puts you in a whole other frequency. And that was really the next catalyst for me. And I will say Dr. Joe Dispenza, like his work earlier on when I was still very, very much breaking the habit of being myself, which is the
Mhm.
book, that was also really great. And particularly for those that are a bit more logical, practical, mental, right? Like you really connect the science with the energetics. And so I'll drop both of those
Yeah.
as big influences.
Those are such good ones. Also, can I plug library apps? Because
Oh
because
yeah.
sometimes honestly, I think that we get, at least I know for me, when you get into this space or you start to want to, you get in that season of like consuming and you're like reading, you're like, how do I buy all of these? Like who, all the things. Anyways, go get a library
Plug the libraries.
card.
Michelle and I love libraries.
I love my local library so much. I love the people that work there are super amazing, but also just like the apps you can download. I need to listen to so many, especially when something is of that nature. Like I really want to hear it. Oftentimes I want to read it and hear it as well, but I just find that really helpful. And if you're like, well, you're recommending all these, like, yeah, get a library card. It's free if you're
Mhm.
able to, and if you can, all the things. Okay. Before we close, two more questions actually. Any memorable feedback you've gotten from a client or student, maybe?
Yes. Well, just yesterday, a client of mine who we've been working together for about a year, um, she's going to be actually at the retreat in Costa Rica. She said this to me. And it was so beautiful because she like got so emotional and was realizing that like all of our work has really truly supported her to create a foundation. And I know that sounds simple, but it's practical. It's like the base, right? To deal with all the ups and downs of life and to face it and to be able to really move through and not never bypassing, never avoiding, never, hurrying up the processing process. But that's part of it, right? Is like you start to learn how to navigate the ups and downs with a little bit more ease, a little bit more grace, a little bit less reactivity and more awareness. So that's really what's present.
Yeah, it's beautiful. One of our
Yeah.
pillars at Karmic Mirror is self-love, and we typically do self-love check-ins at the end of our episodes and also love to ask our guests on our episodes, Steph, what does self-love mean to you?
Oh, I love this question. I see self-love as really truly being in relationship with all aspects of yourself, the light and the dark, ego and soul, inner child, higher self, masculine, feminine, right? Like all of these aspects, and just really embracing them, nurturing them, feeling into them, and creating that connection. Like to me, that's the ultimate. sense of self-love, when you can provide that for yourself within yourself and not rely on external sources.
Mhm. All right. Where can we find you?
Yes. My website is soulspacebystaff.com. My podcast is Soul Space by Steph, and my Instagram is my full name, Stephanie Pereira Lima. So that's Stephanie, P as in Peter, Ereiralima. A nice long one.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing. Oh my gosh, so many. I'm really looking forward to listening back on this because there were just so many beautiful moments. I think probably the word chills was said like 100 times because it just felt so beautiful. And I don't know about you both, but like I just think I really needed a really sweet and tender and real, genuine space to land the end of the week with.
Mm.
It felt really lovely. And so I'm so happy that you were able to join us. And also thank you everyone who's listening. And yeah, every little ripple from this episode, I think is just going to be so amazing and
Yeah.
unbeknownst to me, but lovely regardless. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much. I really genuinely appreciate it. And it's been so comforting to have the space to fully express and use my voice and, really just share an update on my path. And I trust that those that need to connect with this will. And I look forward to, connecting with those that are listening and see where this goes and to many more podcasts together. I want to bring both of you onto mine as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Ciao.
Thanks for tuning in. If you resonate with today's conversation, connect with us on Instagram at Karmic Mirror Podcast and send us a message.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're loving Karmic Mirror, we'd appreciate a glowing review or a share with someone who could benefit.
As we close, remember, life is not a one-size-fits-all approach. How are you honoring your unique path? Stay curious and always be kind to yourself. Until next time on Karmic Mirror.